Hello and welcome to the Sound on Sound People and Music Industry podcast. I'm Sam Inglis, and in this series of episodes I'm talking to some of the people who've been nominated at the 2023 MPG Awards. And this morning I'm delighted to be joined by Daniel Moyler. Hello Daniel.
Hi Sam, you alright?
I'm very well, how are you?
Yeah, I'm okay, thanks.
Excellent. Well, you're no stranger to the MPG Awards, or indeed to awards in general. You won Recording Engineer of the Year in 2020. Following year, you won a Grammy for your work with Dua Lipa. What's the secret?
I think probably just surround yourself with people that are better than you, and then go along with it. Yeah, I don't know if there is a secret. I wish I knew it. But there you go.
Well, this year you're nominated as Breakthrough Producer of the Year. So does this reflect a sort of deliberate change in your career path, or is that just happenstance?
I think it is. I think it's kind of happened quite naturally. Most things that I'm nominated for this year are kind of extensions of either my mixing work or my engineering work. So stuff where I've kind of like been in the room and just someone needs to finish the track, like basically, or stuff that you get sent to mix where it's not quite there for whatever reason, and you end up kind of embellishing it. So yeah, I think it's probably been a natural progression in that sense.
So tell us a little bit about your career to date, because obviously you've got a very impressive track record as an engineer. How did that come about?
I mean, I kind of started a very traditional route, which is becoming less of an avenue, I guess. Now, I literally started working on night reception at SARM Studios when it was still in Basing Street, and kind of like managed to like weasel my way into assisting position from there, and just kind of gradually just kind of worked up. Then I guess there was SARM closed down and everyone kind of moved on, and I started kind of freelancing, which was kind of amazing actually to be kicked into that world, and just kind of forging good relationships with producers and mixers. I started doing like mix assistant stuff as well, and yeah, I guess here we are.
Well, SARM Studios, Basing Street, obviously has like amazing heritage. I think it was the original Island Record Studios, wasn't it?
Yeah, 100%. They've got Bob Marley's hot tub still there upstairs in the flat, or probably not now because it's been redeveloped into luxury apartments. But yeah, the history in that place is amazing, and the space is incredible. It was a really, I feel quite lucky to have like started learning there and using those spaces. Yeah, special place.
You must have worked on some pretty memorable projects there as well.
Well, I was pretty green when I was there, to be honest. But there was some great stuff, and you just had really random stuff. Like Nico McBrain from Iron Maiden would just turn up one night, and you'd have to mic up his 50 toms or whatever ready for the session in the morning. It was just kind of like, and then you get really young One Direction were in, like when they'd done nothing, they're just like hanging around playing pool, like, so you get this kind of like random eclectic like stuff that only a studio like that kind of attracts, I guess.
So when you think of SARM, obviously you think of Trevor Horn. Was he a sort of mentor to you?
I wouldn't go that far. I suppose I kind of worked on more of like the external projects, but I mean obviously he's there and he like kind of shapes the everything that kind of comes out of that studio is like, the people were attracted to it because of Trevor and because of those amazing records that he made. And
then you got thrown into the sort of freelance world. I imagine you didn't perhaps feel quite ready, but that must be pretty scary.
Yeah, but then you're right. But then I know people that have gone into freelancing much later in their career, and I think that's possibly even scarier because you've kind of sat around in an institution having a great time, and now you're kicked out. So yeah, like I say, I was quite pleased to do that, and I started assisting mix engineer called Rory Cushnan, which was great, and we did like Mumford and Sons and Ed Sheeran records and all kinds of stuff like that. And then slowly started forging relationships with producers, like I say, like Cam Blackwood, who I still work with today, and Joel Pott is another one. And then that's where the kind of engineering kind of built up, I guess.
So these days, when it comes to engineering, are you doing more tracking, or are you mostly a mix engineer?
It's a bit of everything, to be fair. This year has been a lot of mixing so far. And I'm about to start tracking with a band called Frank Carter and the Rattlesnakes. So that'll be the first kind of like full album tracking session that I've done this year. But there's also there's lots of good stuff coming out that we were working on last year. There's an Olivia Dean record I got to be a part of. There's a new Ben Howard record, got to be a part of that last year. So I feel quite fortunate in that sense. But I suppose, like we were saying, there's been this natural progression towards mixing and towards kind of production bits, which is a new thing for me, and yeah, it's exciting.
And do you feel that you get sort of pushed into working with a particular genre? That there's a tendency for producers to kind of get pigeonholed as the person who does, I don't know, roots music or something, or do you manage to retain a kind of wide portfolio of styles that you do?
I think I feel really fortunate that so far it seems to be quite diverse, and I like that. I like that I can be working with a punk band one day and then I can be in doing like proper pop vocals the next day. It kind of keeps it exciting for me. But in answer to your question, I've noticed that I've gravitated towards maybe pop music that still uses a more like traditional instrumentation, if that makes sense. Like my kind of skill set as an engineer, naturally recording bands in live situations, string sections, whatever, has transferred in that way, because a lot of bedroom producers don't know how to record a string section, like, you know, and neither should they, because they're amazing at like working at Ableton, which I'm not. And so a lot of like acoustic based music, a lot of band based music has been what I've gravitated towards, I guess. So yeah.
And do you have to put a lot of work into consciously keeping your skills up to date as the industry changes?
That's a good question. I feel like I put more effort into keeping my tastes up to date and keeping like a brace of like new music and trying to find stuff that excites me that's coming out. Because a lot of the stuff kind of stays the same technology wise. I think it doesn't move that rapidly. But music itself does, and that's exciting, and that's more exciting for me to stay on top of that.
And one thing that's changed in your life in the last year is new studio,
which is great. So it's part of a complex in Brockley, and there's some great people in here. Toby Tripp's next door, Johnny Breakwell, Kerry Willits, Star Smith. There's a nice little collection of people down here, and that is, I love that, basically. I love being around kind of like a busy environment. I think working in a home studio environment has its challenges for me. It doesn't kind of tick my boxes. I get very bored very quickly.
And if you're mostly mixing, it can be a pretty lonely business.
Oh, totally. Yeah, totally. So the ability to just pop out, have a cup of tea, grab a friend in to listen to a mix and realise it needs more work, you know, that plays into it.
Some of us don't need friends to do that.
But but it's nice. Yeah, it's a good little setup.
Excellent. And tell us a little bit then about the projects that you've been nominated for this year.
Cool. So there's a George Ezra track called "Don't Give Up," which I was working pretty closely with Joel Pott, who's his kind of writer producer. On that project, I engineered the project, and this one track kind of just presented itself as needing a bit more programming and a bit more work to kind of like get it over the line. So I took that one on board. It's just really great to be a part of that project. He's such a sound guy, such a good guy so that was a good one. Then there's Koala, another great band that kind of started off as like a bit of vocal production, just helping them finish that, but then kind of escalated. It's a great track. And then the guy Jack Savaretti, can't forget Jack. I've worked on 2 records with him, so I was mixing a bunch of stuff for his Europeana record, and there are a few tracks that just presented themselves as needing a bit more work. They already sounded great, but apparently they needed to be taken in a slightly different direction. So I was able to do that on that as well. So yeah.
So that must require quite a bit of confidence on your part to go back to people and say, look, this track you've sent me to mix, I really think this could do with some congas or whatever it is that you're proposing to add.
Yeah. I think, so I suppose in that sense with Jack's record, I engineered the whole record as well. We went to Abbey Road for a couple of weeks to do that. And working with Cam Blackwood really tightly on that and on various other projects. It was not me that presented it as needing extra work. I was like, this sounds great, but I think what the record company wanted and kind of just needed that bit more. So yeah, I would never say that of anyone's work. If someone says me something to mix, I'm like, this is brilliant. Otherwise, you wouldn't have sent it out to be mixed. Like, I think I have the acceptance. There's something good here. There's something generally brilliant that's exciting. So yeah.
So do you never get a mixed project in where you're really struggling to make it good, and you think that, and that's not a mix issue, that's a production or a tracking issue or an arrangement issue?
Yeah, definitely. There are some certain occasions where you end up fighting against elements that are kind of out of your control as a mixer. But then, even in that instance, I think it's my job to go, the vision that the producer and the artist had is in this track, and that is what is most important. So whether it doesn't sound like perfect or correct is irrelevant, because their creative output is and the song is the key thing, and that's the most important thing.
And that, I guess, is the key difference, if there is one, between being an engineer and being a producer, is when you're a producer and you're credited as producer, it's your vision that's on the line, not someone else's.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, 100%.
So it's been amazing to talk to you. Thanks for your time, Daniel. But I mean, if we want to hear your vision as a producer, is there anything coming up that you can talk about?
There's lots of mixes coming out, which is really exciting. So there's an album, band called C Fret, coming up, and an artist called Banners that's coming up, and that's really exciting. I suppose production-wise, there's an amazing artist called Lexi Carroll, who I was able to help finish one of her songs, Eden, which is going to come out soon. She's brilliant. So go and listen to Lexi anyway. She's great.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much, Daniel. It's been great to meet you.
Great to meet you too.
Best of luck at the awards. Thank you for listening. And be sure to check out the show notes page for this episode, where you'll find further information along with web links and details of all the other episodes. And just before you go, let me point you to the soundonsound.com/podcasts website page, where you can explore what's playing on our other channels.